Hey everybody, my name is Patrick O'Halloran. I'm a solutions architect with Warescape. And today I'll be talking about what the title says, using data warehouse automation to migrate your data warehouse to the cloud. I'm going to talk about Warescape a little bit, then I'm going to talk about the whole process of how do you build a successful project to move from on-prem data warehousing to cloud data warehousing. So again, a little bit about who's Warescape. Why do you want to migrate your data warehouse to the cloud? You probably already know that answers to that because that's why you're watching this video, but I'll go over some of that instead. What stages are associated with getting to your data warehouse migration? How do you plan for it? What do you do before the migration? How do you define your strategy and execute that strategy? And then finally, questions and answers at the end. So Warescape started as a company that was doing consulting, building data warehouses, and we were building some tools to help automate the building of those data warehouses, and those tools overcame a lot of the issues. But what are some of the issues that people are having with data warehousing? Lack of trust on the data delivery ecosystem. Maybe you've got some old legacy system that's large and cumbersome. People don't know how the data got where it is. Other problems that may crop up, new compliance and regulation, maybe because of mergers, acquisitions, maybe because of regulatory changes, maybe because of corporate changes. You've got new requirements and you need to make changes to an existing system. More data from more sources. That's probably the biggest change I've seen in the last 10 years. The 10 prior years to that, probably the biggest change was the amount of data being loaded. Now what's really different and challenged today is the number of disparate sources you're pulling data from, whether it's Excel spreadsheets or REST APIs, JSON files, XML files, whatever it is. Difficult to find enough staff. There's a lot of technologies involved in building a data warehouse, a data foundation, and finding the technical skills can be difficult. Debugging, testing, and rework routine take much too time. There's a very, very good book out from the 80s is when I got it, called The Mythical Man Month by a man named Frederick Brooks. And he talks about productivity of system level programmers, not just in terms of writing code or creating modules, but having fully production tested, documented code. And that takes a long time. I think he said his statistic was that a good programmer was developing 10 lines of code per day. Again, fully tested, documented, production ready code. Data warehouse automation certainly helps with that. Communication as to what data is available and where it's coming from. Documentation is a huge benefit of data warehouse automation in Warescape. The idea that I can, with a few clicks of the button, present an entire glossary, all the relationships, the star schemas, everything else to the end users is a huge plus. And then the cost to maintain highly reliable data structures are skyrocketing. Certainly on-prem, the cost of those have not gone down, while the cost of cloud computing has definitely gone down. So what is Warescape? What do we do? We used to talk about data warehouse automation. Data warehouses, I don't want to call it an antiquated term, but now people talk about data lakes, data lakehouses, data marts, data vaults, all sorts of data structures. Really, when I talk about data warehouse, what I mean is any large data foundation that has curated historical data, probably from multiple sources, that's available for analytics, either data analysts developing charts and graphs and reports, or possibly feeding into an AI engine to train it, or even to just get results out of it. Traditionally, there's been a lot of tools involved, a lot of technologies involved in those. Every time you switch tools, every time you bring in new people, there's a chance of introducing mistakes, slowing things down. One of the huge advantages of automation, of building, designing, and developing and deploying these processes, this foundation, is fewer mistakes means less testing, less rework time. Things are a better product at the end because you can get immediate response to what it is you're developing instead of spending several months working on something and then getting feedback. So why automation? Cost, obviously, development cost, times goes down, maintenance cost goes down, testing costs go down. That's a great advantage of automation. Risk, I think Gartner in 2022 had a report out that said that building a data warehouse, a data foundation, analytics data foundation is one of the riskiest and costliest projects that IT can take on, with one of the biggest failure rates. Automation helps in that I can develop prototypes very, very quickly. I can get things out in front of the user and mitigate things and not have to wait 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the road to find out that what I'm building just doesn't work. Certainly complexity, both in terms of the architecture of the data foundation as well as the number of sources I'm bringing in. Urgency, and we certainly saw with the pandemic that company priorities, organizational priorities can change very, very quickly. Being able to respond quickly, certainly advantage of automation. And then agility, the idea that I can create rapid prototypes in front of data analysts or whoever the end users are, the business people that are needing the information, and get their immediate feedback. It's certainly part of the agile environment. If I get my slides right. Global reach, Warescape's been, like I said, been around about 20 years. We've got more than 1,200 customers. That number probably needs to be bumped up. And really what we do is we increase productivity, not just of designing and creating a system, but building a better system that really reduces rework, reduces testing, and things like that. The example I use is that a car is not just an automated horse. It's not just a fast horse. It really changes what you can do and how you do it. Data warehouse automation is not just a way of producing a data warehouse faster. It really changes how you work and what you produce. And as I said, we've been around about 20 years. We're in pretty much every single industry you could think of around the world. Data automation, that's a kind of an encompassing term. It can mean anything from, I don't know, using templates to having something that takes over completely and generates your entire data warehouse. The key aspects about Warescape are that it's metadata driven. So as you're doing work, you're describing what you want to do, not how you want to do it. And then Warescape fits in the details. How do I get data out of a REST API and get that up into Snowflake? That's pretty much all I need to tell Warescape. What's the URL for the REST API, and what's my target? Where am I putting the data? I'm putting it in Snowflake, and it'll create the Python scripts, create the HTTP calls, the file parsing, the DDL, DML, whatever it needs to do to get that action done. Best practices, industry standards. The nice thing about data warehouse automation and generation is that as I work, I don't have my own personal idiosyncratic style I'm introducing. Whether I'm doing the work or one of my coworkers is doing the work, it's going to be done the same way, getting the same results. Documentation lineage is a huge advantage. The idea that with a couple clicks of the button, I can see trackback diagrams. So maybe I'm looking at a dimension or a fact and someone says, where did this number come from? I can trace that all the way back through all the transforms back to the source system. Or if a source system has changed, I can very quickly get a report that says, show me everywhere where this source system entity attribute shows up in my data warehouse, and then I can decide what to do with it. Easier to evolve, expand, and port. Certainly I've been working at an abstract level, and you'll see that most of the work you do in Warescape is independent of whatever the target is. So whether it's Snowflake or Databricks or Fabric, Azure, Synapse, whatever it is, the work I do is generally independent of the target, meaning that if we do decide to port later, there's very little rework that needs to be done. That's the database agnostic example. All right, so let me talk about actually migration. You've got an on-prem solution you've been using. You've built up maybe over a couple of years. SQL Server seems to be a popular platform, but it could be Teradata, it could be Oracle, could be a bunch of Excel spreadsheets. I've seen that as well. So someone has decided, probably higher up, that we need to migrate to the cloud. We need to do at least a POC, a proof of concept, a trial, just to see, is this feasible? Will it work? What problems does it fix? What new complexities does it introduce? So the general stages are assessing, what do you have right now? Where are you at right now? Coming up with a plan on, okay, what are we going to migrate? How are we going to migrate it? Who's going to be doing it? Over what schedule? Migration execution. Okay, now that we've decided what to do, let's actually do it. Optimization and testing. Okay, we've done it. Let's make sure we did it right. And then go live and maintenance. And one of the basic questions is a cutover. How do you decide when you're going to decommission your old analytic system and bring in your new analytic system? All right, planning, defining objectives and outcomes. What are you doing? What do you have right now? What systems do you have? What domains are you monitoring? Is it, HR, production, enrollment? Is it about students? What is it about inventory control? What do you have right now? And what is your desired outcome? Are you going to move everything as it exists? Are you going to try and upgrade your data foundation, your infrastructure? Maybe build a greenfield, brand new from scratch data foundation layer in the cloud instead of migrating lift and shift as it is. Those are some decisions you need to figure out. Scope and timeline. What are you going to migrate? Is it going to be everything all at once? Is it going to be particular domains at a single time? Maybe it's going to be new systems as they come up. You'll leave your existing systems on your old data warehouse, and then as you merge with new organizations, bring in new applications, maybe that's what gets migrated to the cloud. Those are kinds of decisions you have to make. Budgeting and resource allocation. You have to really get a good idea of what is the priority of this. How does this migration plan rank in priority versus other projects that are going on? I've seen too many things where everyone says, yeah, it's our number one priority. Yeah, we're absolutely going to make sure this is a commitment. We're going to get it done this year. Production issues happen, other issues happen, and resources get pulled away. Budgeting doesn't quite get allocated. You've got half the staff you were expecting. Not only do you have to make the budget and resource allocation, you have to make the commitment that you're going to be doing that. And then building the right team. If you're migrating to the cloud and you have no cloud experience, whether it's Snowflake or Databricks, Synapse, whether you're adopting a new architecture, a new methodology for your data foundation, data vault, whatever it is, make sure you have people with experience. There are plenty of opportunities to make mistakes in building out, especially with the new technology, in building out your data foundation. It really, really helps to have people who are experienced, who understand the options you can take and which ones are correct. A lot of times, options that are correct just depend on your particular organization and the steps you should take. So having people with experience is obviously an absolute plus. And whether those are brought in as consultants or whether they're brought in as full-time employees or some sort of service partner, those are decisions you're going to have to make. But you definitely need the right team. You need someone who has commitment to this as a sole project manager or program manager who's going to be responsible for this and nothing else. And then you need the technical people who understand the current systems, as well as the technical people who understand the where you're migrating to. And then you really have to involve the business as well. One of the big failures of many IT projects in building data infrastructure projects is looking at these as IT projects. They're obviously IT heavy. There's a lot of IT skills involved, but ultimately they're business projects. I'm not creating a data warehouse to make IT happy. I'm making a data warehouse, creating a data warehouse, migrating to the cloud to give a better product to the analysts, the scientists, the AI engines, whoever's going to be consuming that data. You need to make sure that they're part of the team as well. So what do you do before migration? Data inventory. What do you have? Maybe it's one system, maybe it's multiple systems. Maybe you've got analysts who have what we would call a dark warehouse. They've built their own processes in place. They've got their own Excel spreadsheets, their own tricky little formulas. Maybe they've actually got some Postgres or SQL Server up and running, which they're loading data into and then manipulating it in some way. To find those things out, you have to go out and talk with people. So talk with the analysts, find out what it is they're using, find out where the data is coming from. How accurate is it? How useful is it? The shortcomings of the current system, any data duplication that may be out there. And then if you are doing something other than a lift and shift, which I definitely recommend, not doing just an entirely lift and shift, is what kind of data cleanup and standardization are you going to do? What mistakes have you made in the past? Maybe you've designed your data foundation, your data warehouse around a source system. That tends to paint you into a corner. Designing your architecture around a specific source system, especially now that more and more source systems are becoming available. So how are you going to clean up not just the data, but the architecture? What kind of changes are you going to make? If you do have troublesome, unreliable data, what are you going to do to get that cleaned up? Is that going to be part of your project? And then standardization. If you've got data coming in from multiple systems, or if you are adding new systems, what kind of naming standards, data standards, primary foreign key relationships, understanding the relationships and hierarchies of your data model, standardizing all that independent of source systems is going to be very, very important. And then obviously data backup. if I'm going to be migrating data from my data warehouse, and that's a question you have to answer as well. Am I going to migrate existing historic data? And if I do that, how am I going to do that? Am I going to clean it up? Am I going to standardize it to whatever my new formats are? Or is it something like clean cutover and we're only going to be ingesting new data? That's a question as well. But obviously backups. I mean, I've been in IT for a long time, and as often as people talk about backups, it's not just making backups, it's testing backups to make sure that they are working. I've got too many horror stories where people were talking about doing backups of systems, and then when crunch time came and they needed those backups, they found out that they weren't quite what they thought they were. So the importance of backups is not just making backups, but testing them. So what is your data warehouse migration? What are you planning on doing? Lift and shift. Again, I would caution against this. Sometimes it's a perfectly reasonable answer. I would say a minority of cases, but taking an existing historic system that's been built up over a long period of time and just deciding we're going to move this directly to the cloud. In some cases, say it's an on-prem SQL server and you're moving to Azure Synapse, maybe it is the right answer because you don't have to do a lot of changes. But if you're moving from some other system, say on-prem Oracle or Teradata to Snowflake, lift and shift is probably not the right answer. You're probably moving to the cloud because you've got some deficiencies in your current system that you can't overcome. Questions that can't be answered by the analysts, new data that can't be incorporated into your model, whatever it is. Lift and shift won't fix those issues. Maybe you're just doing replatforming. As I said, maybe you're moving from on-prem SQL Server to Azure SQL, Azure Synapse. That's a fairly easy one, but that's definitely going to complicate. It'll answer some problems and introduce other problems. Where are you going to in the cloud? Are you going to something very similar or something brand new? Re-architecting, it's a lot of work. It introduces a lot of complexity, a lot of testing, a lot of things you have to do. But as I said many times, that's the right answer rather than lift and shift. Because as I said, with lift and shift, you're going to pretty much bring along any baggage, any historical issues you've had in the past. Re-architecting may be the right answer. This is your chance to get over that technical debt, get over the system that's evolved over the last 10 years, has a bunch of band-aids and baling wire holding it all together, all the cliches. This is your chance with re-architecting to really design a new model. There is a book I mentioned, the Mythical Man Month, where there's a whole section in there called The Second System Effect, and how the second time someone builds a complex system, their tendency is to make it overly complicated and do all the things they couldn't do when they did it the first time. So if you are re-architecting, my caution would be don't make it overly complex. Keep things simple. Don't introduce absolutely everything you never had in the first system. Get a solid baseline of a design that's going to work. And then as time allows, as budget allows, introduce specific things you think would be helpful. But don't try and add absolutely everything you're missing from the original system into your re-architected system. That is going to really increase your chance of failure. Choosing the right migration path. Obviously, prototyping is good. Proof of concept, something like that, just to make sure it's feasible. But understanding how you're going to get data from your old system to your new system. Are you going to get data from your old system to your new system? Are you going to take historic data, especially if you're re-architecting, in some design, some methodology that's maybe on an on-prem system, if you re-architected, are you going to move that historic data? And if you're going to move it, how are you going to transform it? Maybe it needs to be completely reorganized in order to get it into this new architecture. Choosing that path is critical. And then obviously using automation with Warescape. A lot of the steps of building this new cloud-based architecture is going to be choosing the right tools. Certainly automation is going to help. Certainly automation with Warescape is going to help. I heard one of my compatriots explain, can you build a swimming pool with a shovel? Well, technically, yes, you can. There's certainly better tools and faster tools and better ways of doing it. Just like building a data foundation, if you're re-architecting, even if you're just doing lift and shift, using automation to fill in a lot of the technical details, to take big chunks of effort out of the project, things like repetitive tasks, manual tasks. Again, not just producing things faster, but producing things better, reducing rework time, reducing testing time, things like that. And if you do get towards your goal and realize you've made mistakes, you need to take a step back. The advantage of automation is that I can change templates, I can change rules, I can change the information that goes into how my system is built, and then regenerate it and begin my testing again. So thank you for your time. I hope this was helpful. As I said, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to move to the cloud. Certainly cost, certainly reliability. As little as, say 10, 15 years ago, I was still working with organizations that had machine rooms. I was tasked with setting up a backup Oracle server. They had a 2-server network, and they wanted a N+1. They wanted a third Oracle server added as a backup. Spent about $200,000 buying hardware, spent about $200,000 on software. For some reason, I'm a software guy, not a hardware guy, but I was tasked with finding space in the machine room and racking and stacking it, getting power, getting all the cables, getting everything else done, and it took several months. I remember the first time I ever saw a virtual machine in a business, my first reaction was, why do you want to simulate a computer with a computer? You already have a computer. That doesn't make any sense. But what this company was doing was they were spinning up web servers. They had a web-based application that would have peak times, and what they would do is, in a matter of 60 seconds, they would spin up additional web servers from a golden image. And that's when it clicked on me that this whole process of having a computer, a virtual computer, is much, much, much faster, much more reliable, much more standardized than having physical machines. I can tell you too many horror stories about the weeks or months it takes to get some machines, purchase orders done, get them set up and installed. So you're obviously considering that. You're obviously looking at moving to the cloud. There's a lot of advantages there. There's a lot of ways you can move to get to the cloud. The big thing is understanding what are your options. Primarily, I would say your options are, well, what cloud platform am I going to select? What am I going to do with my existing systems? Am I replicating them, or am I replacing them, or both? What kind of priority does this project have? Who's going to be involved in it? What kind of testing am I going to do? How am I going to cut this over? Am I going to keep historical data? How am I going to test this? And then when it does come time to decommission your existing system and move to your new cloud-based environment, how's that going to be done? Is that going to be flipping a switch overnight? Is that going to be separate groups that are going to move one by one? All those are decisions you need to make. And hopefully this has helped you come up with some of those situations. So that's it. I appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to us at warescape.com. And you can email us at moreinfo@warescape.com. If you go to warescape.com, you can click and contact us. I'll be glad to talk with you, answer any questions you have. But thank you very much.